Hi, I'm Tori and I'll take you through the practice today. Today we're going to do a yin yoga practice. So yin is slowing down the body and slowing down the mind. It's about working into the flexibility within the body. So we're looking at holding poses between 2 to 5 minutes. And we're really opening up in towards the ligaments and in towards the tendons and deep in towards the joints. So make sure you have props with you. A yoga block is a good one. Equally, if you've got like an Amazon box or some kind of box that you've had deliveries, just something that can give a little bit of support if you're leaning a leg on or leaning a hand on, or just kind of putting a bit of weight in towards it. So equally, an encyclopedia or a big kind of book is good. Otherwise, grabbing a yoga bolster. If you don't have one, then kind of pillows from bed, and just kind of like maybe using a blanket or a towel, just wrapping them up nicely, just kind of getting a bit more condensed, or kind of the pillows that you have on your sofa. So just something a bit more softer than the box that you can put weight into and just feel that kind of bend into and lean into with a little bit of softness in towards that. Otherwise, we'll start in towards the practice. So today I thought we'd do a little bit of expanding breath. The theory behind yin yoga, is to do with traditional Chinese medicine, and as it's springtime, the element is wood, which is kind of the growing, the expansion. I'll talk a bit more about that throughout the practice, but the breath work that we will do is just a little bit of round of breath, just expanding the energy from the heart. And it's quite nice to kind of feel the energy of others in the room, as well as kind of just creating a little bit more outward going energy rather than maybe kind of sitting with energy really close. So all it is simple. We'll sit for a couple of rounds of breath, just holding the hands onto the sternum, onto the center of the heart. And then we'll slowly, on the count of 3, we'll inhale really deeply, have the arms out wide. We'll hold here for about the count of 4. And then on the exhale, we'll come back in, elbows wide, hands come back in close. So we're back in towards the heart. And if you can, when we are moving the hands backwards and forwards, just imagining open the energy back towards the outside, and then slowly bring that energy back in towards the heart space. Just a nice kind of thing to visualize as we go through it. So coming into a comfortable seated position, whether that's cross-legged, kneeling, placing yourself onto a block just to give yourself a bit of height. Sometimes I just like to straddle some pillows and get comfortable in the sitting bones, but also giving a little bit of height in there as well. Get a bit of space in towards the side of the hips. So we're just going to come into a comfortable seated position, closing down the eyes. And maybe if it's too much, then just taking the gaze down towards the ground in front and just keeping a little bit of space in towards the body. And we're just starting to just check in with how we're feeling. And just noticing if we still have our mind running around with our to-do list, our energy levels, whatever it is, we're just kind of taking a couple of moments just to arrive onto the mat. And just checking in with how we're feeling physically. So if there's any areas that we feel we might want to breathe into or stretch into throughout the practice. Or whether we're feeling quite good and there's areas that feel quite open and maybe want to kind of close them down throughout the practice. So just really just checking in with how we feel. And then slowly we're going to take the hands onto the heart and towards the heart space. So as we start to just feel the physical body, the chest rise and fall with the inhales and the exhales. We're not changing, we're not adjusting, we're just starting to feel that breath. Make that connection with yourself. So we're going to start to breathe a little bit deeper now. So just taking a couple of deep rounds, just filling the body. We're breathing in and out of the nose. And as we're taking these deep breaths, just feeling the body expand and deflate with those inhales and exhales. Slowly on our next inhale, we're going to take the arms out wide, so releasing the hands for 3, for 2, for 1. We're going to hold with the hands out wide, opening into the heart for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, hands come in for 3, 2, 1. Holding the hands on the heart for 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 3, arms come wide, 2, 1. Hold for 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, hands come in for 3, 2, 1. Hands to the heart, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 3. Hands come wide, 2, 1. Holding for 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, hands come in for 3, 2, 1. Hands to heart, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, arms come wide, 3, 2, 1. Holding here, hold the breath, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, last time, 3, 2, 1. And then slowly just holding the hands in the heart. And just feeling that energy moving in towards the self. And maybe we're starting to feel it radiate out from our center, from our core, from the heart. And touching other people, other spaces around our room. Perfect. And then just slowly releasing the hands down towards the knees of the thighs. And we're just going to start by working in towards the neck. So if you want to, just opening up the eyes, just flickering them open. And then slowly we're just going to take our right ear down towards the neck. Sorry, down towards our right shoulder. So we're feeling a stretch in towards the side body. So we're just going to hold here for 2 minutes. So if it's comfortable for you, just slowly let that energy, let the magic of gravity, just pull the shoulders down, ear comes wide. Just holding here, breathing deeply. Feeling that stretch. Again, like I say, maybe you want to close the eyes and just feel what that feels like in the body. We've got 1 minute left, so maybe you want to take the right hand, if it's available to you, and just taking a hold of the forearm on the left. So we're just taking a gentle space. I'll turn around so you can see. And we're just holding on towards the back of the arm and just pulling it down slightly. So what that does is it just pulls that stretch a little bit further in towards the neck and into the shoulder. So coming to wherever you are, holding for about 30 more seconds, feeling that stretch. Perfect. So we're going to release the hand behind us if it's there. We're going to take that hand towards the ear and just gently move it back in towards the center. Perfect. Just giving ourselves just a bit of a moment, just seeing how our left and our right feel. Maybe we feel lopsided, maybe we feel more stretched and it feels good, maybe unsure. That's totally fine. We're going to come in towards the other side. So we're going to take the left ear down towards the left shoulder and we're going to feel that stretch. So again, just holding here for 2 minutes, feeling that space in between the shoulder and the neck. Just a lovely deep stretch into all those muscles. we spend our day kind of standing, working through gravity, or sitting at a desk, typing in towards the laptop, and our posture can come a little bit hard. So just working towards the neck space can be really lovely for a yoga practice. Just breathing, using that space. Amazing. So we're just going to come a little bit deeper if you want to. So we take the right hand and we place it behind the body, and we find that stretch. Sorry, left hand behind the body to pull down the right arm a little bit further. So we feel that stretch. So it's the opposite arm. So the way in which our ears folding down to the shoulder, it's that hand that moves around the back of the body. So we're feeling that stretch in towards the side of the neck. Lovely deep stretch, and just holding, using that breath. Again, if you don't want to come deeper, then that's totally fine. It's not a problem. Amazing. Couple more seconds. And then slowly just releasing that hand, bring that left hand around, just bring that head back in center. And just holding, just feeling that kind of sensations through the side of the neck. Maybe you want to just give yourself just a little bit of a shake from side to side, and that's totally fine, just to readjust the neck. That's not a problem. And then slowly we're going to make our way in towards our next pose. So our next pose is our toe tuck. So we're going to come into tucking the toes, and this can be quite a strong practice. So we have options. So we come into tucking our toes, and it simply is tucking the toes under and feeling that stretch through the back, through the sole of the feet. Now, if it's too much, then feel free to either prop yourself onto a bolster or bring a block or your box just underneath, but equally that can be quite a lot in towards the ankles as well. So it might just be a matter of hands down towards the mat and just tucking the toes simply in our tabletop. So we're just finding that stretch in towards the toes with no weight whatsoever into it. So whichever variation you want to come into, we want to make sure that we're tucking even our little toe in there, because our little toes sometimes like to get lifted. So we want to feel that stretch equally throughout the whole of our foot. And again, we're just going to hold here for 2 minutes. So if you want to, just closing down the eyes, hands, if you're sitting on something, towards the knees or the thighs, and just feeling that breath, feeling that stretch all the way through the back of the feet. So as we're working through spring, and I mentioned the wood element in traditional Chinese medicine, there's certain places within the body that can be really activating in towards these meridians. And for the wood element, it's into the soles of the feet. It's in towards the rib cage, and in towards the groin, into the inside of the thighs. So the practice today is designed at kind of cultivating these spaces and really starting to feel energy or sensations in towards the body. So just coming to wherever you're comfortable within your body and your practice. There's no right or wrong. It's just yoga is about moving the body to the breath, but also about connecting ourselves with our true self. So it's very slow movements in our yin yoga, and trying to match that with our breath. If we find that we are holding tightly towards the breath, then we need to just give ourselves a moment just to readjust, pull ourselves out of the pose, or take a deep breath and just part the lips and just sigh it out, and that will just give yourself a little bit more space in towards the body to relax and gently come in towards that yin state of mind. Perfect. So we're just going to slowly release ourselves. We're going to walk the hands in front if we're not in our tabletop, and just slowly place the weight in towards the hands and just release the toes. So just releasing the toes slowly and carefully, knowing that we've kind of been pulling open those joints. And we just want to, if you want to, just giving themselves a little tap down onto the floor just to kind of realign them in towards the opposite direction. It doesn't mean to be fast, just nice and slowly, just to release. Perfect. So the next pose we're going to come into is our child's pose, a wide leg child's pose. And again, we have options. So we're going to take the legs out wide, knees come wide, and our toes are touching behind us. So we've got a nice opening in towards the legs. So again, we've got options. So wherever you want to come to, if it's available, taking yourself all the way down towards the ground and forehead down. So this is kind of our deep kind of version of opening up into the hips. If you want to come a little bit easier into the pose using your pillows or your box and just placing the forehead down towards and just giving yourself a little bit of height. Equally, you can place it underneath the chest, lengthways if that helps. And also, if there's any issues really in towards the hip, then maybe taking the knees out wide and just placing the pillows or the bolster underneath and just giving yourself a little bit of rest. We want to find, and then also supporting the neck in towards this pose, because what we're looking for is a gentle release. So here for me, having a straight spine is more comfortable. Having the knees out wide, I'm able to place all the weight in towards the bolster and just feel the weight come down in towards the bolster and then gently open to the hips. So I'm not coming too deep in towards the pose. We're going to hold here for another 3 to 4 minutes. So just finding that comfortable space, closing down the eyes and just letting that energy melt in towards the ground, open those hips. What we find is our mind will tell us that we need to move, we've got other things to do. So the trick is just to be really present, and the way in which you can become present is just checking in with the breath, and also just checking in with how you feel, and just noticing how the hips feel, how the openness feels. Maybe it's uncomfortable, and that's totally fine. If there's any kind of sharp pain or really difficult pain to deal with, kind of shooting pains, or feels like you're overstretching in any way, then pull yourself out and either gently come back into the pose or come into another modification I've talked through. It's nice to have something underneath the front of the body and the pelvis, because it elevates the hip and it gives you a bit of space. This pose is also a lovely pose to open in towards the adductors, because when we hold stress into the body, we can hold stress right tightly in towards the hips. And without knowing it, we might be typing at our desk, but pushing in towards the knees and creating tension in towards the adductors. So by sitting in a space like now where we're in comfort and we know this period of time, we're able to open into the hips. Just eliminate some of that stress that we may have been holding on to. Perfect. We've got about 30 seconds left into this pose, so just really letting go, feeling that openness, feeling that stretch in towards the inner thighs. Amazing. So we're just going to pull ourselves out of the pose. We're just going to walk the hands back in towards us. So just gently pulling ourselves in. If we're on that bolster, just removing that bolster and just coming all the way back. So I'm going to come into a rebound pose. If you're in your full child's pose, maybe you want to just lie down onto the back. And if you want to, just coming down in towards seated at the back of the mat. So just coming, leaning backwards, taking the legs out towards the front and just gently windscreen wiping them from side to side. So just feeling that kind of openness in. Again, just a little reminder that we're working deep in towards the joints and towards the muscles and tendons. So we want to find a very slow movement just to find that release. And if you want to, just taking the legs out in front of you just for a moment, hands come behind, and just holding here for about 30 seconds, just feeling that release through the body. Now, when we work in towards our body, we feel sensations like maybe tingling or kind of a stretch, deep stretch in towards our muscles. And when we come in towards our rebound pose, we feel that kind of sometimes it can be a little bit hard to feel that release. We can feel that space where we almost want to move ourselves out of it, and that's totally fine. All that's saying is that kind of we're releasing a little bit too quickly, so just coming out of our poses. We've been holding for a long time, so we have to be aware and we have to honour the practice to move slowly back out of that pose. So the next pose we're going to come into is going to be our butterfly pose. We're going to come forward. So we're sitting onto the ground and we're just going to bring the soles of the feet together in front of us. So I'll come round facing towards you. So we take the soles of the feet together, the knees come out wide. Doesn't matter how close the legs are. If you want to, if it's uncomfortable into the legs, then maybe placing a pillow or a brick just underneath the sides of the legs and taking the feet out towards the front of you. Just totally depends on how deep you want to come into your practice. Just remembering that when we come into a pose, we want to be holding it for that duration. So if we are coming into the pose too deeply, then it can sometimes hurt and we kind of pull ourselves out. But if we can go in gradually and get deeper and deeper, then that's better for ourselves into our practice. So the way in which I'm going to come in towards butterfly today is I'm going to take the soles of the feet together, knees out wide. I'm just going to pull the bolster in towards me and just gently melt myself down towards the bolster. And as I'm going to start with placing the block just underneath the head to begin with, to give myself a bit of release. So just coming sideways for you. So I'm going to find that release into the hips first. I'm going to take the palms of the hands up towards the sky. So where I'm feeling this pose personally now is very close in towards the pelvis, on the inside of the thigh. And then slowly as we come deeper into the pose, I'll release the block and get a little bit more in towards my neck. So with this pose, we're working deep in towards the groin. And we have 5 main kind of adductor muscles, which are what we use to bring the knee in towards center line. So if we're standing, we take the legs out wide and we bring the knees together. These 5 muscles all have different uses for different ways of and different variations of moving the leg. This one is, for me personally, getting really deep in towards that pelvis. Probably a muscle that I don't usually stretch into throughout my yang kind of practice. So holding here can be quite nice to find that release. So holding here, we've got another 2 minutes into the pose. So again, a nice kind of gesture, maybe closing down the eyes and just giving that a space to feel that release. We want to kind of find that the props are holding us up, or our bone structure is holding us up through the magic of gravity. And if we are able to release and find space, it's a great way of just kind of letting go and feeling deeper stretches into the body. Probably about 1 more minute into the pose. Maybe if you want to, just take a big inhale, parting the lips, and as you exhale, just imagine just finding a little bit more space. Maybe it's 1 millimeter, maybe it's a little bit more. And just laying that openness in towards those hips start. Perfect. So we're just going to gently move ourselves out of the pose. So keeping the head tucked, we're going to slowly walk the hands back in towards us so we feel the stretch in towards the back of the neck. And then we just gently lift ourselves back into center, so bring the head up and just finding a little bit of release. So we're going to remove the bolster and just take all the pillows and just take it out towards the front. Taking the hands towards the outsides of the knees and just very slowly and carefully bringing those knees in towards us. So we just kind of release and just even holding the legs in for a moment. You can just feel that nice stretch that's been happening on the inside of the legs. So we're just coming in towards a rebound pose now. So just taking the legs just gently out towards the front of the room and just coming down on towards our backs just for 30 seconds to a minute, just to really feel that release in towards the back. And as we were working into a forward fold, we feel the release in towards the lower back, above the hips. Any issues in towards the spine, we bring the knees towards the sky and we just knock the knees in together, and it just gently creates a little bit more curve in towards the back and releases this kind of the stress that's been taking place there. So wherever's comfortable for you, just taking a couple of breaths. Breathing into that space. Perfect. So we're just going to slowly release. So we've got the legs out wide, knees up towards the sky. Maybe we're still keeping them there. We're going to just gently bring ourselves back up into seated. So just pushing ourselves onto our elbows and then slowly bringing ourselves all the way up. Amazing. So we're going to come in towards a squat pose. So a squat pose can be quite strong in towards the legs. So again, we've got options which I'll run through, so whichever variation you want to go into. So if you have your box or pillows, and you might want to come in towards your squat pose, just sitting down, so taking the legs out wide. If you want to, bring the hands into prayer and the elbows towards the inside of the leg and just taking our forehead down so we feel the stretch in towards the outside. So this is a nice option. Maybe taking the hands down towards the ground so we feel a little bit more stress, or kind of, I say stress, a little bit more kind of stretch deeper in towards the groin as we just fold forward. We can always come in towards a squat pose without any support in towards the legs, and if we do so, it might be more comfortable to take that variation of just leaning forward with the gaze down towards the ground, just as it gives us a bit more support in towards kind of where the gravity runs through the body. Now another option, which I'll show you up here, is just coming in towards a wall and coming into a squat. So just taking the legs out wide. So coming in towards the squat pose, taking the legs wide and just holding here. Again, if there's any issues, maybe placing the block and just placing it underneath the legs, so just giving ourselves a little bit more space in towards the variation. It just helps us relax in towards the hips. And for this pose, we can be as far or as close towards the wall as possible. It gives us a bit more relief in towards the knees, but we still get that stretch in towards into the thighs. So whichever variation you'd like to come into, we're going to hold for 3 minutes, just coming into that space on whichever Squat is more comfortable and just coming forward. So we feel that forward fold release in towards the body. So remembering we can either be on a bolster or a block with the hips a little higher. We want to tuck that chin in if we're in this pose, so we can feel the release through the back of the neck. But we can also allow our gravity center line to come down into the chest. So we're not kind of fighting our feet of falling backwards. We're into that kind of comfortable space. The other option is obviously against the wall. So we keep the legs bent and straight. So we keep our legs bent and we bend into the hips. And the deeper that we want to go into the pose when we're against the wall is depending on how close we want to get our bottom towards the wall. So we're holding here for, I'll give it another 3 minutes from now, so then we're kind of finding that release, giving you time to have moved in towards the pose. So I talk about the meridian lines through that we feel these sensations, and the best way to describe them are kind of the energy, the chi lines. They almost run through the body as if like blood. So where our blood runs through our veins and our arteries and pumps up and around the body. We have chi, that's energy, and that runs. Although we're not able to see it, in traditional Chinese medicine they believe that there are kind of 12 main pairs that kind of run through the body. And these pairs move energy for different reasons. And we have the yin and we have yang types of meridians. So some of them are start in the feet and pull the energy up towards the head. And then some of them are start around the head and then pull the energy down in towards the feet. So they're paired in order to kind of create that kind of the yin and the yang part, I guess, of the pose, of the stretch, of the body, just to feel that energy moving up and down the body. And when we feel these releases of energy after the yin practice, we can feel the actual meridian lines almost that have been activated by those sensations that kind of maybe pitter out from the place that you are further in towards the outer extremities like the hands and the feet. So got one more minute into the pose. So wherever you are, just noticing how we feel. As I mentioned, with the yin practice, when we work deep in towards the hips especially, we can feel energy and kind of like emotions that we may not normally have to deal with. We may have submerged these deeply inside us. So it's all about kind of having a practice to observe the body and feel those spaces within us. So for our hips, we can hold a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, kind of judgment towards ourselves. So by opening these spaces in us, we might find that we're a little bit more emotional or a little bit more frustrated. We might not be able to turn the mind off. So whichever variation you're in, we're going to come out of the pose. So if you're against the wall, I suggest just slowly taking the hands towards the outsides of the knees. Bring the knees together and then slowly just taking yourself, rolling to one side or the other, and just slowly holding on the floor for a moment. If you're in a squat like myself, either supported or not supported, just slowly walking the hands back in towards you as we bring the head up as last. Again, kind of it's a strong stretch in towards the back of the body as well. So just taking the hands and just maybe moving the feet one by one back in towards the center, just holding for a moment, just feeling that release through the body, through the knees. Perfect. And then just coming in towards that space where we can windscreen wipe the legs. So taking ourselves so our bottom's flat onto the floor, arms come behind us, and we're able to just give that windscreen wiping space from side to side, but again just moving very slowly and feeling those muscles around the hips and around those joints that we kind of like have been opening and stretching into. So coming to wherever's comfortable for you in the practice. Perfect. Amazing. So we've been working deep in towards the inside of the thighs, and we're just going to come in towards a forward fold. So we're going to work in towards the outside, or kind of rather the back, into the hamstrings. So we're just going to take the legs forward, and we're going to take the legs out wide, or not wide, kind of just gently hip width if you want to. And just finding a bit of space. If it's uncomfortable for you to move forward, you can always just use your bolster. Mine might be a little bit too high, but if you want to use your pillows, just taking the legs again so they're just a little bit further, so the knees are bent. So we've got that space underneath us. With our yang practice, I talk about keeping the spine straight, but with our yin, we want to feel stretching towards the fascia and the connective tissue. So for our forward fold, we're going to just, if you want to, bending the knees, trying it with bent knee, and just taking the legs so they're gently just parted so they don't have to be straight in front of you, so we have that openness into the sitting bones. And then slowly we're going to create that forward fold once more. So just, if you want to, walking the hands towards the front of the body. So our tummy comes towards the thighs, and wherever it's comfortable for you, we're just going to tuck our chin in and feel that stretch. So again, it might be that you want to use a block just to give yourself a bit of support in towards the neck. It might be that you just want to place the hands next to you with the palms facing upwards, or they might want to reach towards the front. So I'll just come towards the front of the pose just so you can see where we are. So I've kind of got that little bit of openness in towards the legs, and then I'm folding forward. So again, we're going to hold here for about 3 to 4 minutes and just find that release. And just gently allow the body just to melt almost in towards the postures that we're asking it to hold. So you might find that it's easier to shut off the monkey mind, the mind that's kind of thinking about everything, telling us to move, if we close down the eyes. And the reason for this is that we're not stimulated by other things that may make the mind think about or reminisce or feel that we need to purchase, or whatever it is that we kind of start thinking about when we see things. Our mind can pick up one small speck and go on to a long storyline in our heads about what we need to do next or what we should be doing. And if we close down our eyes and we stop that stimulus, we're able to be a bit more inward and feel the stretches within us and be a little bit more present in towards the physical self. So just go about 1 more minute here. So if you want to, just releasing any props that we have around the head. And just slowly, just feel a little bit deeper in towards the stretch, in towards the neck. And slowly, wherever you are, we're just going to walk the hands gently back in towards us. Again, keeping that head as tucked as long as possible. So we really want to feel those stretches in towards the back of the neck. And we just gently bring ourselves back in towards seated. So we're opening in towards the back of the body quite a lot today, and just kind of feeling those counter poses after sitting at our desk all day, feeling those lovely stretches. So we're going to come in towards a couple of final poses before we finish. So we're going to come in towards a wide leg but half butterfly. So what that is taking our legs out wide. We're going to bend in towards our left leg. So we're kind of creating kind of like a V shape. Again, doesn't matter where we are, doesn't matter how open the legs are. We want to feel a release through that lengthened leg. We're going to come and bend in towards our side. So if you want to take your box next to you or your pillows, we have the option just to bring down onto our elbow, over towards the right. We want to lift that left arm up and over. So we want to find kind of just basically let that elbow just melt on towards the side of us. So it might be that we're more comfortable just taking the hand out towards the side and just feeling that stretch, or maybe, like I said, you want to take that elbow and just place it onto the body. If you want to have it next to your knee, then that's totally fine. Or it might be that you want to just place your head onto your hand and feel that. Again, if you want to come higher, feel free to do so as well. So there's lots of options to come into a comfortable space. It might be that you want to come up quite high. What we're looking for here is a nice stretch in towards the outside of the hip on the left hand side, but also a lovely deep stretch in towards the rib cage as well. So what we do, we're going to hold here for about 3 minutes on each side, just finding a release in towards the body. Doesn't matter if our left knee is slightly lifted, because we're looking more for a stretch around the ribs and around the pelvis. Again, like I've mentioned in some of my yang classes, is maybe placing a block underneath that left knee if we're finding it too much in towards that leg. Again, option to have the leg out towards the side as well, towards the front, if there's any issues in towards that knee. So we're just working with our own body and our own places of movement that we can come into. Feeling that lovely stretch through the side. And again, like I say, so we're holding for about another 2 minutes here. Just observing the body. So we want to make sure that we are slightly uncomfortable, and when I say uncomfortable, as in like we want to feel the stretch. We don't want to be in pain, but we definitely want to feel a stretch. So it's kind of being comfortable with that stretch, comfortable with that space. Perfect. Probably about 30 more seconds into the pose, just to really feel that wrist stretch come in towards us. Perfect. So we're going to slowly take the top hand over and we're going to bring that left hand down towards the side. So we're just going to hold here for a moment, just feeling the kind of adjustment through that shoulder. So we feel the shoulder blade kind of move back down in towards the body. And then we're going to slowly just take that left hand and help us move back in center. So it's quite a deep pose, this one. So we'll feel that kind of readjustment into the hips, readjustment in towards the rib cage and the shoulders, because the whole body is kind of settled but also moving towards the side. So we're going to come straight in towards the other side. So we're going to release that left leg out towards the front. We're going to take that right foot and just place it towards the inside. So again, knowing that we're coming to wherever's comfortable for you. It might be one side more open than the other. That's totally fine. We spend our day doing things, but we might be right hand dominated or left handed. It might be whatever we're doing is kind of like predominantly with one hand, or driving a lot, we use our left hand more than our right. So it's totally dependent on what you do for a living, or what you're doing in your day-to-day life. So working with that space, as you can see, my right knee's lifted a lot more than my left, and that's totally fine. So coming in towards the other side, so we're going to take our right hand up and over the body, over the head, so we find that stretch, and then coming to wherever's comfortable for you, placing that left hand onto the block or bolster, and we feel that stretch across the side body to the side. And if I'm honest, when I'm into this pose, I don't really feel any kind of sensations in towards the rib cage until I've moved. So it's more of a stretch in towards the top of the hips, rather than in towards anywhere else until I've made that movement. And then when I move out of the pose, I realize how deep or how far I've kind of stretched in towards that space. So again, we're going to hold here for about 3 minutes. Just feeling the body just gently release as we sit for a bit further, and you can just nicely just kind of feel almost the muscles just release. Gently kind of like finding that space, that stretch. Feeling that body. It might be that we're in a pose that's slightly more difficult to breathe in, and that's totally fine. We're just kind of noticing how it feels to maybe squash down onto one side than the other, so we can feel the diaphragm move and circulate differently through the body with the breath. So it's all these observations that we start to become more apparent in towards our space and in towards our body. Amazing. So we're coming in towards the final minute in towards this pose. Perfect, so we're just going to take our right hand up and over, so we're going to release that hand, just taking it down towards the right leg, just wherever's comfortable, and just letting that adjust, feeling that space. And then slowly we're just going to bring ourselves, maybe using that right hand just to help us back in towards the center as we release through the back of the body, through a big muscle called the QL, the quadratus lumborum, that's kind of like deep in towards the pelvis. So it's a lovely stretch coming out of that. If you want to, bending into the legs, knees come up towards the sky and just coming in towards that release through the body. So just taking the knees from side to side and just feeling that body just kind of release and relax. It's a great pose across the top of the back of the pelvis for me. I really like kind of coming out of that pose and just feel the sensations running around the body and in towards the center, into the core. So we're going to come in towards our second to last pose. We're going to come in towards our heart opener. So we've done this one before. We're just going to take the bolster or pillows towards the back of the mat, and we have options. We can either have it really close in towards the body, so we fold. We can get quite deep in towards that lumbar spine, so I like to take it further away. Gives more of a natural space in towards the spine and towards that kind of curvature, and then slowly just releasing ourselves down. Again, we have the options of either having the legs out wide, and if we want to, taking the legs, just reaching out so they're lengthened, so we've got less stress in towards the hips. But if you want to, and if it's too much, maybe placing a block or placing some extra pillows underneath the pelvis just to open up. And what they do is it tells our mind, like our subtle mind, that we're in a safe space to release. So it will release more with something underneath it, because you won't be holding and clenching in towards that space. So for this pose, we're going to hold here for 4 minutes. So coming into wherever's comfortable for you. And if it's available for you, taking the hands out wide with the palms facing upwards. And this is a nice heart opener, especially if we have been working in towards the neck, that we have been with the forward folds, and finding that stretch in towards the back of the neck. So for now, we're opening in towards the front and into the heart, into the collarbones. It's lovely to feel that space open up and melt, almost melt open, as the shoulder blades drip either side of the pillows that you're on. Or again, this one can be quite nice if you don't have any pillows, getting a towel, getting a beach towel or bath towel, and just rolling up so you've got a nice condensed, kind of like a hard cylinder but still soft, that kind of like to put between the shoulder blades, so you're not as high as what I am now, but you still have that openness. And again, closing down the eyes, and you can just start to feel that kind of release into the body, into the space. It's a very powerful practice using the breath. So if you've got spaces in your hips, one leg more than the other, you need to release. And just place that breath in towards whatever muscle or whatever sensations you're getting. And just feel that kind of open and release further for you. We can feel quite vulnerable when we're in heart openers like this, and it's quite a strong pose to kind of feel release. So if we're feeling anxious in any way, or we're feeling kind of stressed, it can be quite a big kind of release in towards the body. So we might find that emotions, we might feel that tears come to our eyes, and that's totally fine. Just kind of feel those emotions, lean into them, acknowledge them. Don't be afraid of them, and just let them come. By releasing them out of the body, you're releasing the space, releasing that kind of tension that you've been holding on to without really knowing. So it allows you to kind of release in towards the body and in towards wherever you need to be. Perfect. We're coming into probably our last minute in towards this pose. So we're going to come out of the pose, we're going to take the hands towards the knees. We're just going to take the hands towards the outsides of the knees and just gently pull the knees in towards each other. If the legs are out long, then just bring the feet in towards you so the knees are up towards the sky. And just, again, just honouring the space, honouring that kind of stretch in towards the body. Then we've been opening into those knees, and then just slowly taking ourselves to the left or the right hand side, so whichever's available to you. And just removing yourself from the pillow or the bolster, whichever one you've been on, and just finding a little bit gentle release into the body. When you're ready, just moving yourself down on towards your back and just placing the legs either coming into our rebound, into our final pose. So this is our final space where we come into relaxation. So you have your knees up towards the sky, and you have that gentle release of the legs kind of just gently moving towards you, and then slowly taking the legs out towards the front, palms face up towards the sky as we find our Savasana. So again, if you want to, if you have your rolled up blankets or you have your pillows, sometimes it can be nice just to place them underneath the knees, so it just gives you a little bit more release in towards the body, into the hips, but then also in towards the knees as well. So it's kind of nice to kind of come into your final relaxation and be fully supported by the body. And taking the palms face upwards. And just letting your body just melt down in towards the mat, feeling that space that we've just created into the body, that expansion of energy. So wherever you are, just taking a nice inhale, just filling the body. Just parting the lips and just letting yourself just melt in towards the mat, feeling that support. Sometimes when you kind of visualize yourself just kind of dripping away, just helps you relax a little bit further into the muscles, into the joints. So we have options as we're in towards our resting pose. If you want to stay here, feel free to. You're more than welcome to. As we're practicing at home, otherwise just starting to move the fingers and the toes. Taking the arms over the head, just giving yourself a full body stretch, just releasing out through the body. And then gently just bring the knees in towards the chest and giving yourself a lovely big hug. Just going to take ourselves over to the left or the right hand side, so we're coming in towards our side once more and just finding that release. Gently just holding space. And then slowly with the top hand, we're going to push ourselves, bring ourselves back in towards that comfortable seated position. So cross-legged or kneeling. And just keeping the eyes closed for a moment, just seeing how the body feels. Just seeing how the mind feels. Whether it feels like it's slowed down in any way. And then just breathing into the body, feeling that breath. Slowly bring the hands into prayer in front of the heart. May the light in me honor the light in you. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me for that yin practice today. I hope you enjoyed that, getting really deep in towards the body, feeling that expansion with the breath at the beginning. Any questions, feel free to ask, drop them into the comment box, and I hope you have a wonderful day.